This message comes from NPR sponsor Sierra. Business connections start with a conversation. Sierra is the AI platform for building better, more human customer experiences. Fast answers with no canned responses, hold music, or frustration. Visit Sierra.ai to learn more.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. In the words of RuPaul,
reading is what? Fundamental.
But are we losing our grasp on it? Our ability to read books, or our lack thereof, has been in the zeitgeist lately. There's been some viral reporting on college kids struggling to finish longer texts. I've seen multiple posts on X where adults are bemoaning their waning attention spans and asking for advice on how to read books again. I mean, you know we're cooked when Oxford's 2024 word of the year was brain rot. I'll say for myself, I've been there. I love to read, but I feel like I've really had to work to be able to enjoy books like I used to. And the data says the same thing. Polls from Gallup and the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that Americans are spending less time reading than ever. This week, I'm revisiting some of my favorite conversations about the value our culture places on knowledge, reading, and education, or the lack thereof. On Monday, we talked about the viral outrage against professors and other thinkers online. Today, I'm asking, is reading still fundamental?
The desire to information forage, that innate code in us has essentially been captured.
That's Elaine Castillo, author of the book, How to Read Now.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm also joined by Abdullah Shihipar, research associate at the People, Place, and Health Collective at Brown University.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much.
They are here to walk me through the battle for our brains, how reading helps develop our souls, and what we can do to get our reading grooves back. To jump right in, according to a Gallup survey from 2022, Americans are reading fewer books per year than ever before. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Time Use Survey, the time people spend reading has dropped steadily over the past 20 years. What do you think is behind this decline? What are the main factors here?
I think sometimes the issue I have with the way that the supposed decline in reading is framed is that massive corporations have essentially captured the capacities in us for reading, which is to say our attention, our capacity for critical thinking, imaginative thinking, all of which are things that are baked into us, into our code, into our evolutionary, selves, the desire to information forage. But that innate code in us has essentially been captured. And maybe I'm using this metaphor because I'm currently on a sobriety journey, but a lot of it is really about thinking of that type of doom scrolling and the algorithms that go with it as essentially putting some of us in a kind of active addiction because it offers a kind of momentary dopamine hit or momentary pleasure, essentially for the enrichment of the wealthiest people in the world. I'm saying this, hopefully it's coming across with compassion because I'm also speaking about myself. Massive corporations have eaten into the time that might otherwise be spent reading, but at the same time, they replace reading, but they're not replacing the restorative aspects, the way that it works on our brain, reading books versus doom scrolling. So it's an illusory kind of replacement of that impulse in us.
That's really interesting. I 100% understand. To open up about myself a little bit, I am 37. I had a cable television with a remote in my bedroom from age 6 to I don't know, maybe through the first 2 years of college. Then after that, I have never had a television in my bedroom ever again. I grew up watching a ton of TV, but I maintained a reading habit really strong, no matter what was happening with me having a television in my bedroom. My reading got troubled once I got a smartphone, and then it really went downhill once I got TikTok. For me, the phone is the thing. But Abdullah, I'm wondering, why is it harder to read than to watch TV or to scroll on social media, like brain-wise?
Watching something on TV doesn't necessarily require much of your brain. I find there's a bigger, I call it quote unquote, like a mental load when you're like starting a new book or you're approaching a new book. And it just feels like this insurmountable mountain, whereas with scrolling, you just kind of like scroll, you see the news, scroll. But there's actually studies that show that reading a book, reading physical media is, for lack of a better term, superior than reading on a screen. Why this is, I'm not really sure. But there's some hypotheses. I think there was one UCLA researcher, I think her name's Marianne Wolf. Her hypothesis is that a lot of the reading we do on screen, implicitly, we are skimming. People retain information a lot better when they've read it on a physical medium than when they read it on a screen-based medium. So it's not even just like television and movies. Screens can have an impact even in terms of reading articles and whatever we may be reading on the computer or the iPad.
Yeah, I mean, screen time is an issue that people of all ages face, but I hear it brought up constantly in regards to kids and young people. Abdullah, you said something really interesting to our producer Liam in your pre-interview about how you see less of an emphasis on reading even for young people. Is the culture around reading different now?
I grew up on a diet of PBS Kids. So we grew up with what? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Arthur, Reading Rainbow, and
the hits.
Exactly. And they were all tied to reading in some way. I mean, Arthur had that like whole song about like having a library card.
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card.
There are memes with DW holding a library card being like,
Now I know what true power feels like.
Reading Rainbow obviously was in the title. And it was literally just reading a book, but also like it encouraged people to go to your local library. Public television, I think, is, molded in the public interest. There are people with doctorates in education and stuff who are involved in crafting those episodes, partially due to online stuff, partially due to the just vast array of, junk on YouTube and content that children can access. It feels like public television, and therefore like the promotion of reading through the entertainment children consume has declined. Governments and societies need to take an active role in encouraging reading and investing the money to do so in encouraging reading. If you really don't make an active effort to promote it, to encourage children to do it, it will, inevitably decline, especially as more things compete for people's attention.
But also even thinking about how adults interact with reading now, I think it's something you have to be a little bit more intentional about now because it's so much easier to indulge in other kinds of, media intake. To me, reading also kind of feels more like a niche hobby. Like there are strong communities of people who read a lot, who are on social media, on Book Talk or BookTube. But our producer Liam mentioned that he thinks reading might be going the way of sewing, like something that used to be a more widely utilized skill, but is becoming kind of a niche pastime.
I would prefer reading not to become a niche activity. I'd prefer social media and apps to become like smoking or sort of repetitive head injury that they come with Surgeon General's warnings.
I appreciate the ambition.
Yeah, I think if reading is going to go the way of sewing in society, then we are in big, big trouble. At the end of the day, like you could pay a tailor, but reading is a fundamental way of how we think and how we interact with the world. And the idea that it's changing has scary implications for just how we think. I was looking up this study from Duke, and they actually gave people 3 tasks, reading tasks, writing tasks. They then presented them with reading comprehension questions later. They found that when they were using an AI tool to do the reading task or the writing task, they found that the reading-assisted task, when they used AI, it was down 12%, meaning that there was like a 12% decline in people's comprehension. It was even more dramatic with writing.
So like when AI did the reading for them, their comprehension went down. And when AI did the writing for them, comprehension went down even more.
Yeah, so that's what I worry about with, artificial intelligence, specifically for reading and writing tasks, is that when people get used to not writing their emails or using it to like summarize certain like large pieces of information, I worry that like we're entering a phase where you have even less comprehension, even in terms of like, forget reading books, but just like not engaging with the written word at all.
It's interesting you bring up AI. One of the things about AI that has been confounding to me are the types of tasks that are being used as selling points to consumers. When I think about like problems that humankind needs help with, I don't know if reading is at the top of my list.
The thing that scares me the most around AI and how we use it is that we ourselves are prepared to abdicate our own humanity and our capacity to read, to contemplate, to wrestle with difficult concepts, to imagine our lives and the lives of others, to read the terms and conditions of our own lives, essentially. Because it is work to think critically, to practice media literacy, and to do the kinds of things that ultimately build a soul. But I think for centuries and centuries, literacy has been a thing viewed as hostile by people in power, right? That there's a capacity for defiance that's built into reading. Why? Because you're able to critically understand the world around you, the world in which you find yourself, because you're able to imagine other people's lives. And if you're able to imagine all the other people's lives, you're also less likely to dehumanize those lives because you've built the capacity in yourself to imagine them. And if you've built the capacity in yourself to imagine other people's lives, that means you've also built the capacity in yourself to imagine your own life differently. Doing the kind of work that restores you to being able to imagine the world differently is defiant.
There's so many good observations you just shared. To talk more about what you mentioned with literacy and literacy education, I recently learned that around half of American adults read below a sixth grade level, and 21% of U.S. adults are illiterate or functionally illiterate. So, this is not new. And it's not always an issue of whether or not people want to read, but rather if they can at all. And to say more about this, only about a third of illiterate American adults were born elsewhere. That's not a comment about literacy rates elsewhere, but to point out that the majority of illiterate American adults ostensibly had some kind of interaction with the American school system. So how is the school system failing so many people?
American public education has been underinvested. And to really tackle that problem, to tackle the problem of illiteracy, we need to invest in it. It will take a real effort, a real governmental-wide effort to not just encourage reading, but to get people's literacy rates up. And to me, that should be seen as sort of like putting a man on the moon or cancer moonshot. Like we should aim for the highest literacy rate possible, and not just highest literacy rate, but the highest level of reading possible.
Coming up, sure, reading is fun, but can it literally extend your life?
People who read books had a 20% decrease in mortality compared to people who did not read books.
Stick around.
This message comes from Revenued. Revenued offers fast, flexible funding for businesses, up to $250,000 for the highest revenue category, with approvals in as little as one business day. Funds are made available on demand, and the cost of capital is based on a fixed factor rate applied to the amount you draw. There are no application fees, no draw fees, and no maintenance fees. Apply now at getrevenued.com and be ready for whatever comes next. This message comes from First Leaf. Summer days hit better when First Leaf takes care of the wine for you. First Leaf's short quiz figures out what you like, then delivers a summer-ready box. Bright whites, smooth reds, and chillable bubbles. No wine aisle guessing, no errands. Just personalized picks shipped to your door. Get your summer sip lineup at tryfirstleaf.com/summertime with promo summertime. Your first 6 bottles are just $44.95 and are matched exactly to your taste. That's tryfirstleaf.com/summertime with promo summertime. This message comes from Ollie. Ollie delivers clean, fresh nutrition for your dog with 5 high-protein flavors, like fresh turkey with blueberries. Made in U.S. kitchens with human-grade ingredients, Ollie's food contains no fillers or preservatives. Ollie creates a customized plan based on your dog's weight, activity, and health needs. Plans also come with routine health screenings using digital photos of your pup. Head to ollie.com/wolf and use code WOLF to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. This message comes from DSW. Where'd you get those shoes? Easy, they're from DSW. Because DSW has the exact right shoes for whatever you're into right now. Like the sneakers that make office hours feel like happy hour, the boots that turn grocery aisles into runways, and all the styles that show off the many sides of you. From daydreamer to multitasker and everything in between, because you do it all in really great shoes. Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store or dsw.com.
What do we as people miss out on when people stop reading books?
It's incredibly pleasurable and innately restorative to us to be in intimacy and imagine lives that aren't our own. And it's also such a gift to be able to spend time, even when we're in isolation, with the shape of another person's mind. Over the summer, I read for the first time The Lord of the Rings. I'd never read that series ever. And I'm now like a Tolkien stan, and I'm really annoying people around me because I'm like, have you heard of this up-and-coming writer, J.R.R. Tolkien? So then I went down a rabbit hole of reading his essays, and there's a really beautiful essay that he's written called On Fairy Stories. But he talks about the joy of the happy ending, and that the point of the fairy story, or what he calls eucatastrophe, which is to say sudden and miraculous grace, happy ending, consolation, which is contrasted to dicatastrophe, sorrow, failure, poverty, loss. And dicatastrophe are the things that people are wanting to escape from. I mean, Tolkien himself was in the First World War. So the happy ending, or eucatastrophe, as he puts it, is a sudden and miraculous grace never counted on to recur. And it doesn't deny the existence of sorrow, failure, absolute loss. But what it does deny is universal final defeat. What it offers us is a fleeting glimpse of joy beyond the walls of the world, as poignant as grief. That is what we get when we read, and when we truly connect with stories that we know will matter to us and that we know will change us. We get that glimpse of joy beyond the walls of the world, or beyond the walls of the smartphone, or whatever the walls of the contemporary world.
I also, though, wonder about, the health benefits of reading. Why might reading be good for us as, human beings?
Yeah, so one study that I found looked at people's engagement with reading, and it looked at their longevity, how long they lived. And it found that people who read books had a 20% decrease in mortality compared to people who did not read books.
Whoa.
I remember when I mentioned that, I was working on a piece at the time, and I mentioned that to one of my editors. She was like, there could be confounding factors, right? There could be people who are more wealthy, have more time to read and what have you. And I think certainly that is the case, but this study actually controlled for those factors. It controlled for factors like wealth and age and certain things. They found an independent association between, longevity and time spent reading. And this kind of, works off the other sort of studies that have been done that showed that reading is protective of cognitive decline, and it's protective of, for children who spend a lot of time reading as children, it's associated with reduced mental health issues as adolescents. Granted, these are studies here and there, but they all sort of come together to make this broader picture that reading is good for your brain, and therefore what is good for your brain is good for your body.
Part of the reason why people have been talking so much about reading, I think, also is because it's top of the year. You know what I mean? Everyone's feeling a little bit like a sack of potatoes. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that people are thinking a lot about reading now. But for people who want to get back into reading, how can they do it?
What I've been doing, because I like to read, I find a pleasure in it, but I also, things are so busy. You find before the day ends, you just don't have enough time. So I've set a goal for myself this year, and it's been working, to at least do a minimum of 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, and that way you can just fit it in here and there. And my strict requirement right now, maybe it'll change later, is not to do a page limit. Don't get caught up in how much you've read necessarily, just that you've checked it off from you. So that's there's no necessary science or anything behind that. That's just something that's helping me right now.
Well, I completely agree. Each book is its own kind of individual time dilator, right? And there are some books that you're like, I'm flying through this. I'm finishing it yesterday. And there are some books that want you to spend hours and hours or days on one page. So I think that, not holding ourselves to some standard of I'm a machine that has to finish 500 pages by, such and such date. Because then it becomes just another chore, / it becomes just another kind of gamified or kind of optimized activity, at a time when we are surrounded by sort of pulls to optimize every part of our lives. The thing that gets you out of fatigue is not someone, cracking a whip at you and being like, we'll read more, peon. Like, well, no. You can have marathon reading and enjoy that and tear through books, or you can just be like, you know what? I'm spending this year with the first chapter of War and Peace, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm not holding myself to more than that, and I'm just going to really live in that world. The word, I think it was you that used it, Brittany, was intentional. The care that we can put into reading intentionally will ultimately help do what I think all of us are looking for when we're trying to recover from fatigue, which is to renew ourselves to the world, to feel like, I don't feel like a sack of potatoes or like a desiccated corpse of myself. I actually feel and believe and think things again. My imagination is working again because, in the face of all of the kind of addictive algorithms, et cetera, sometimes I think of readers as like conservationists, in which the endangered habitat we're thinking about is our imaginations.
My gosh, Elaine, Abdullah, this has been such a great conversation. You all have me so reinvigorated and so hyped up to read. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for having us.
That was Elaine Castillo, author of the book How to Read Now, and Abdullah Shihipar, research associate at the People, Place, and Health Collective at Brown University. And I'm going to put on my influencer hat for a second and ask you to please subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. Click follow so you know the latest in culture while it's still hot. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
Barton Girdwood.
This episode was edited by
Jasmine Romero.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from Mint Mobile. If you're tired of spending hundreds on big wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks, Mint Mobile might be right for you with plans starting from $15 a month. Shop plans today at mintmobile.com/switch. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. This message comes from Warby Parker. Prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Glasses designed in-house from premium materials starting at just $95, including prescription lenses. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you. This message comes from Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right. They offer premium wireless plans for less, and all plans include high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and nationwide coverage. See for yourself at mintmobile.com/switch.